Hey guys, what's going on? James here, and in this video today, we're going to be talking about all of the matchups that you guys need to keep an eye on for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Week 8 matchup versus the New York Giants. So, without further ado, let's get started talking about some of the matchups. The first matchup that I want to highlight in this upcoming game is going to be Devin White and Lavonte David versus New York Giants tight end Evan Ingram. As all of you guys have known for many weeks now, the Giants are without Saquon Barkley. He tore his ACL very early on in the season, and the Giants offense has had to try and manage without him, and things have been pretty rough. I would say, though, that one positive coming out of this offense for the Giants has been the semi-resurgence of Evan Ingram at the tight end position. I feel like he's had an overall pretty solid year this year, and as always, it's going to be up to guys like Lavonte David, Devin White, and even Shaq, Barrett, and Jason Pierre-Paul a little bit as well to try and help out with the overall coverage of Evan Ingram at that tight end position. And yeah, Lavonte David, Evan Ingram, they're the best linebacking duo in the NFL right now, and I think that they can handle it, but I will give credit where credit is due. Evan Ingram is an insanely athletic tight end. He has got the size, he's got the catching, he's got everything you want really in a modern day NFL tight end. He really is that good in my opinion. I think that he is pretty underrated. So it still is going to be a tall task for both Lavonte David and Devin White, but I feel like both those guys are up to the challenge, and that should definitely be one of the higher end matchups in terms of New York Giants offense versus Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. So pay attention to that one because that could be a very critical matchup. The second matchup I want to mention here in this video is going to be Daniel Jones versus the entirety of the Buccaneers defense. Now, I put this one here mainly because I'm still upset about what happened last year with the New York Giants. You all remember, I believe it was week 2 or week 3, the Buccaneers had the game in hand. It was a missed field goal. The Buccaneers lost that game, and Daniel Jones played a really great game the last time he went up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in his rookie season. So a lot of the guys from the Buccaneers defense in terms of starters and whatnot are back who played in that game last year, and they are going to be looking for a decent amount of revenge on Daniel Jones since he pretty much shredded them last year. So let's see how Daniel Jones does. He's been doing okay this year. He hasn't exactly had the greatest cast around him, especially without Saquon Barkley. It's really been Evan Ingram and then a revolving cast of wide receivers because the Giants are dealing with a ton of injuries this year. Yes, Devontae Freeman is there as a free agent signing, and that is helping out a little bit, but Daniel Jones has had to do a lot of work by himself. The offensive line has been okay. I feel like it's been a little bit more bad than good, so Jones has had a ton of pressure on him throughout this season, and he's going to be going up against a very formidable defense in recent weeks here with this Buccaneers defense. They've been playing lights out all year. So, yeah, let's just see what happens. Will the Buccaneers defense get revenge from last year's game, or will Daniel Jones come back and have another great game for the second year in a row? Let's pay attention to that. The third matchup I want to mention here is going to be Mike Evans and Scotty Miller versus James Bradberry and Ryan Lewis. You all remember James Bradberry. He used to be a starting cornerback for the Carolina Panthers, and the last time that James Bradberry went up against Mike Evans, things did not go well for James Bradberry. I believe Mike Evans had over 100 yards and at least one touchdown. It was not good times for James Bradberry at all. Things could have went a lot better for him. So he's going to get another crack at it. Scotty Miller is also going to be playing a ton in this upcoming game due to the fact that Chris Godwin has been ruled out with a fracture in his finger. He sustained that fracture in the most recent game versus the Las Vegas Raiders. So yeah, let's see what happens. Let's see if Mike Evans can yet again get the better hand over James Bradberry, and then Scotty Miller versus Ryan Lewis. That one should be pretty interesting. Myself, personally, I'm a fan of Ryan Lewis. I think that he's a pretty decent cornerback, but Scotty Miller has been having a phenomenal year. He's actually the leading Buccaneers wide receiver right now. I don't think that'll stay maintained throughout the entire season, but right now he is the Buccaneers leading receiver in terms of yardage and things like that. So, hey, good job, Scotty Miller. Pay attention to both these Buccaneers wide receivers versus what is right now a pretty banged up New York Giants cornerback room. But the second to last matchup I want to mention here is going to be Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette versus Dexter Lawrence Dalvin Thompson, and Leonard Williams. And I will say this about the New York Giants team. Yes, they are dealing with so many freaking injuries this year. It's actually pretty sad, but their defensive line has been able to stay healthy, and in my opinion, it is the strongest unit on this entire team. I think even whenever everybody is fully healthy, because that defensive line is great. I mean, Dalvin Thompson, Dexter Lawrence, and Leonard Williams are all high draft picks. I believe they're all first rounders. Dexter Lawrence might not have been a first rounder, or Dalvin Thompson. They might all be first rounders, honestly. But I know at least 2 of them are first rounders, and they all are very, very good at what they do, especially in terms of stopping the run. All 3 of those guys are very good at what they do, and it's going to be up to Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette to try and get something going here on the ground game. And overall, we've seen some very good things from both those running backs so far this year. Ronald Jones had that stretch where he had three 100-yard games in a row, and then most recently, Leonard Fournette almost had a 100-yard scrimmage game versus the Raiders. So both those guys have been playing some pretty good football this year, and they have the task of going up against these 3 behemoths of defensive linemen. I really am impressed with the Giants' defensive line. I think all 3 of them are just cloggers in terms of the run game, and I think they are all, again, pretty good at the football. So let's see what Ronald Jones can do. Let's see what Leonard Fournette can do. Will they get the upper hand here on the Giants defensive line, or will those 3 guys end up stopping the Buccaneers rushing attack? We'll just have to wait and see there. But the last matchup I do want to mention here is going to be Rob Gronkowski versus Logan Ryan and Jabril Peppers. And I'm going to be talking about Rob Gronkowski a lot this week. I'm just going to tell you that ahead of time, but Gronk's been looking great the past couple of weeks with the absence of O.J. Howard and the kind of surprising lack of targets to Cameron Brate. Gronk's been getting a ton of work here the past couple of weeks, and he's been delivering. He isn't looking necessarily like peak Rob Gronkowski, but he is looking pretty good. Peak Rob Gronkowski would catch the ball and then just absolutely destroy everybody in his path. This Rob Gronkowski that we're getting now, he's catching the ball, not destroying people as much, but he's still not going down easy. So he's not back to peak Gronkowski, but he's pretty close, which, hey, we will take that every single day of the week. But he's going to have a very interesting and, in my opinion, tough matchup ahead of him. He's going to be going up against Logan Ryan, who is a former Patriot, former Tennessee Titan. He went from the cornerback position to the safety position, which was a very confusing move at the time when I had first heard about that, because I thought that he was an excellent cornerback, but his agent had told teams that he was willing to play safety. The New York Giants obliged and said, sure, you can come play safety for us. So now Logan Ryan's a safety. I think he's had a pretty decent year so far this year, so good for him. That was a little bit of a confusing move, but also Jabril Peppers, who was traded, I believe 2 years ago with the Cleveland Browns. He went from Cleveland to New York, and in my opinion, this is a pretty solid tandem at that safety group. I think that once Jabril Peppers got out of Cleveland, he has been doing some pretty darn good things for the New York Giants. Imagine that. After you leave Cleveland, your career can finally take off. Who would have guessed? But that combination of guys, Logan Ryan and Jabril Peppers, it's a very solid combination of size, speed, good catching ability, in my opinion. I think that Logan Ryan is more of that savvier, good hands, good length, good overall coverage skills, and then Jabril Peppers is basically a freight train with legs. I mean, that man can hit really, really darn hard. I remember coming out of the NFL draft thinking that man would potentially be a star for the Cleveland Browns because of how hard he hits and how versatile he could be. Things didn't work out in Cleveland, most things don't, but now with the Giants, he's actually starting to show what he can do. So yeah, both those guys are going to have partial jobs of covering Rob Gronkowski, and that's a tough matchup for them, but I think a similar thing can be said for Rob Gronkowski going up against these 2 safeties. I mean, if Gronk catches it and then he takes a shot from Jabril Peppers, I'm going to tell you right now, that's not going to be an easy shot to take, and I think that Logan Ryan can go coverage with Rob Gronkowski in a pretty decent way. So yeah, overall, that's going to be 2 very interesting guys to take an eye on in terms of how they deal with Gronkowski on the New York Giants defensive side of the football. But guys, that's really going to be it for this video in terms of all the matchups that we need to keep an eye on. What did you guys think about all the matchups that I mentioned, and what are some of the other matchups that you guys are keeping an eye on for this upcoming game? Anyway, guys, go ahead and continue the discussion down in the comments section below. Thank you so much for watching the video as always, and I will see you guys in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.